Hi everyone, Ronald Ingram here, your rebel banker futurist, broadcasting live on X, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and more right now from the Nevada high desert looking down on the Luxor pyramid. We have Spock Talk every second day lately at 6 p.m. It's a discussion around the revolutionary new digital asset known as Spock, the Genius Token. It is a token or a coin. Yes, you can use the words coin and token interchangeably. The differentiation is not material for this coin. It is a meme coin like Doge, and it is also a fungible asset or coin like Bitcoin with properties of scarcity, the intriguing cultural fun aspect of Spock, and some real serious use cases for the entire financial industry that give it extraordinary utility. Also, as far as I know, I'm the only doxed banker in America to launch a crypto of this kind. There are banks that are issuing stable coins. This is different than that. To be clear, there is no link between my bank and Neobanx, my 100% owned tech company that is the holder of many of the patents, which is part of what makes the Spock coin so unique, is that it is the intellectual property is secured by several pending and issued patents as well. So also where we're at, so this token is now exactly 60 days, 2 months old, and it is up a lot. Has folks that invested in the first 30 days or so, or invested in the first few weeks, have reported increases data-based. I had one report, one testimonial actually, an executive who put in $100 about 35 days ago and is up 14,113%. That was as of yesterday. I think it's about the same today. So this is a very serious, unusually rapidly growing token. And unusual, and the reason I paused there is the pattern is unusual. A lot of meme coins are known to rise really, really quickly, like within 24 hours, and then dissipate almost to nothing, and then they flatline and are really one and done in a very, very short period of time. That's all changing now with the steady stream of really clear regulation and really clear leadership in the different regulatory agencies, from Kevin Warsh, the new chairman of the Federal Reserve, who's a crypto enthusiast, as noted by as indicated by the 30 crypto assets in his digital assets in his wallet when he was confirmed. And we have the OCC leadership and many other folks who are FDIC has put out guidance on a number of things, and the executive orders right from the president have indicated tremendous support for the crypto industry as the basis of an infrastructure, potentially for the financial system going forward. So today I want to give you some more concrete plans about where we are. So I've talked a lot about the concepts. We have talked a lot about the intellectual property, the novelty, the differentiation. I think I've quite well established that for many people. If you've listened to one of my posts, we often talk about how unique and highly differentiated Spock is. And then on top of after Spock, we came along with BROK, so Spock is this utility token, this utility meme coin, and BROK is the face of the whole construct, which includes an alternative credit scoring system and the Ingram evaluation matrix, which is a brain for AI models that is neutral, that is model agnostic, and can be applied to any model to make artificial intelligence decisions, AI decisions, more explainable at the human level by categorizing every decision according to 4 categories, 4 immutable categories with numerous subcategories below. The 4 immutable categories are very simple. They're strategic fit, feasibility, financial impact, and risk. Those are applicable across a number of different verticals, but particularly the banking sector is what we're talking about based on my background in banking. And the really strong, urgent requirements and needs for banks to be more efficient, to utilize artificial intelligence effectively, but in a way that is going to keep them on the right side of regulators with regard to fines and that could be incurred if decisions are not properly explained and accounts are closed or loans are turned down without good explainable reasons. So artificial intelligence can be employed to do that, but the reasons have to be explainable. So some really powerful things that are very key to the whole financial industry and other verticals. So I'm going to talk to you about the phases that we're in right now and are going through in the short term through the end of the year and into the next year. So I divide our plan. This is a business plan. A few disclaimers. This is everything herein is for planning, and it is not to be construed as a prospectus. It's not an offering of a security, and it's not a security as defined in the CFTC guidance and the SEC guidance. This is a digital asset and would have previously been considered and categorized as a meme plus utility token. So so those disclaimers, and I'm not an investment advisor either, and I'm not a lawyer either. So always do your own research. So here are the phases. We have phase 0, which we're in right now, which is building in public, and then we have phase 2, which is the Singularity Launch. That's where we launch BROK, which is the really user-friendly interface, literally the face of all of this technology that can be used by bankers or by anybody that has any kind of financial needs of any kind related to borrowing, lending, transacting. So pretty well every human on the planet that's over the age of 15 and is going to transact is involved in financial transactions, and therefore will be able to benefit from the utility of BROK, the interface for this stack of agents that will be able to assist and educate people in everything from taxes to loan decisions, and of course in the case of bankers, and that's what I originally designed this whole system for, to assist with underwriting and even at the board level to assist in deciding which projects to proceed with and which not to proceed with. The other component to this whole thing that is really attracting a lot of attention right now is the whole agentic commerce side of things. And so you put all these things together, you get an agentic banking system. All parts of the system, banking systems, large or small, global or local, always involve ancient or modern, and always involve 4 things. They involve transacting, borrowing, lending, and trust. And the stack that we have with the Neoscore and the Ingram evaluation matrix provides for the risk assessment and for trust and risk-based pricing and checking all the categories of risk, internal policies in the case of a banker, or internal preferences in the case of an individual, and as well as checking all the external rules and regulations up to the minute prior to a decision being made. So some really powerful things that I've seen that are of great interest to bankers in my talks with bankers and the education that I do for bankers as part of the Bankers Institute, which is one of the largest educational bodies for bankers with 1,800 financial institutions that are members of that organization. And we recently completed first conference that I was a chairperson of, co-chair with Dr. Streff, on neobanking and digital transformation, where Tim Scott and his office had representation with Colin Carr speaking as a keynote speaker at this conference, which was earlier in May 5th to 7th, actually. So that was those are all things that are underway right now that we've been doing. So we did this initial token launch March 26th, and to raise awareness about these concepts and to provide a source of funding as well for the idea. So far no funds have been expended from this project, and all funds are, and I haven't sold any tokens. 13% of the total capitalization is locked for 2 years, which is unusual for crypto, but because crypto is often very short term, at least on the meme coin front. But we're a very long term project. That's one of the reasons that the patterns for this project are very different. So we've got sort of two groups. We've got an unusually large number of people who are new and very new. A lot of them getting their first crypto wallets ever, and others who are very who are knowledgeable about business and finance and traditional banking and traditional business and business leadership and executive roles and that type of things. A lot of them are affluent. So that's one group that has and their expectations are very different. So this is something I wanted to call out today. Their expectations are, they in some cases, some of the family office type people that I deal with, I mean, they're thinking multi-generational about their assets and their investments, and they may never sell. If they get a good asset, like a good piece of property or a good stock, they may hang on to it for decades. So most people aren't. That's one extreme of the spectrum. But for the newbies that are listening and who are just maybe getting their first exposure to crypto has been with SPOCK, this is not the usual experience, right? So this is actually moving more slowly than many who are very accustomed to the crypto space would expect. They expect it almost to be done in the first day in some cases, and it's anything beyond that is beyond what's expected already, just to survive beyond the first day in many cases. So we're very, very different than that. This is a long-term project, as many newbies and normies and affluent people who invest in other asset classes and are new to crypto would expect. So for the experienced people, for the people who are experienced in crypto, I would advise you that these people that are coming from other industries and are new to crypto, they take longer to make decisions, and they're also, and this is a big problem that I want to advocate for or advocate to solve and bring to the attention of Tim Scott's office, the Senate Banking Committee, and leaders in the industry. And I've already made bankers aware that I think they're putting themselves at risk if they do this. And what is this that I'm talking about? This is essentially throttling people who are new to crypto, preventing their easy access to be able to buy their first crypto assets. And often it's done for their safety and protection, because there are so many scams. And that's been a lot of that, I think, is being fixed because of all the rules that have been put in place that are helping make things more clear and understandable. But let me just finish with these phases. So the big launch is going to be July 24th, and that's where BROK is launched. And BROK will be this super robo genius banker, is what one way I refer to, or you think of as a valet or concierge level financial services, where it's a one-stop shop where you have a dedicated AI, like a specialized variation of other models, Chat GPT and things like that, but specialized in the area of finance, business, and that's every area of business, from operations to setting up your business, LLC or C corp or whatever the form and structure. BROK will be able to educate you and assist you quite actively, to the degree that regulations allow, could actually do things for you to the degree that regulations allow. For example, what BROK couldn't do in the current regulatory environment is BROK could not open a FDIC insured bank account at a regular bank because only a human can do that with proper human credentials. So until regulations change, there's some boundaries that have to be operated within, and that's actually a feature of BROK, is that BROK will has guardrails in place to prevent people intentionally or unintentionally from crossing a line. So, for example, BROK could assist someone to do a loan between two parties, a true person-to-person loan, say between two family members, generate a draft contract that you could run by your lawyer, because BROK isn't a lawyer either, but could give you a template to provide a clear legal binding contract between the parties, so that things are official and payment schedules are worked out and interest rates are worked out, and all of that is worked out for you. BROK could assist you with those types of things as well. So that will be a big event when we make that available. And the functionality, it's functional right now. BROK is actually part of my agentic stack that is working for us for this project right now. And one of the things that BROK will be able to do with SPOCK is SPOCK was designed for machine-to-machine transactions. So this is a whole area of agentic banking systems and agentic commerce, where robots will transact. Now, like I said, they may not be able to open a bank account, but you could provision a wallet for BROK, and BROK could do transactions on your behalf. And one thing that's going to become important is just like it's important with humans to know who you're dealing with, whether they're malign or benign. And that's usually done through a credit score and reference checks, maybe, for large transactions. And what BROK can do is what Neoscore does for BROK is that it applies that those same tests to robots as well. So you shouldn't trust a robot any more than you would or wouldn't a human, perhaps. So they're different, but you need to make sure, just like you would with a human, before you transact with them, you want to know that they're not a scammer or involved in illegal activities or involved with the proceeds of crime or something like that. And so same thing with machines that are representing humans and operating on the behalf of humans. If those humans have bad intentions, the machines may amplify those. So BROK is launching, and the degree of functionality that is yet to be finalized. We'll get what some people will have exposure, will be involved in testing BROK volunteers and so forth, right up till the date that we launch in July 24th, 2026. And that will be a launch where we will have some marketing. Up till now, we've gotten to our current market cap that's been bouncing around between, averaging around 5 or 6 million. Low. It took a dip right now, along with all of the markets. And I could, this is not actually. I don't know that I wrote a whole thread on what some of the reasons are for this whole market decline that has affected SPOCK a little bit as well. But just in a nutshell, there's been so much. It's odd. It seems odd to many folks that you would have so much good news, and then after all of good news compounding upon good news. I'm talking about the Genius Act and the CFTC, SEC directional guidance from March 17th, and then the memo of the 2-page memo saying what's a digital asset, and that digital assets including Bitcoin and Doge and Ethereum and others, and that clearly would include SPOCK in that categories with very specific language in a very simple 2-pager. March 28th, and that came out, and then Kevin Warsh, and then multiple executive orders directing regulators to be more welcoming to fintech and fintech companies and neobanks getting outright bank charters like Kraken. It's just been and increasing utilization of Bitcoin transactions by volume now exceed Visa and MasterCard transactions combined. And most of these the Bitcoin transactions are really large transactions between institutions. It's almost becoming like the L1 layer, the settlement layer for large value transaction systems, which is where I see it clearly going. So that's phase one will be the launch of BROK, and then phase two. Between phase one and phase two, we're already generating revenue, but between phase one and phase two, we will have additional sources of revenue. I'll talk about what those are in a second, and then phase three, we scale the bank into beyond the earth. So yeah, I'm gonna add that back in. So yeah, another key milestone is I told you I'm using BROK right now. So we already have an MVP working. BROK is assisting me with a lot of development tasks, and as part of the full agentic stack, and well, not development tasks. I have other agents that are assisting me with that. But right now, I'm operating, often say, at an FTEP of around 15, creeping up every couple of days as tools get smarter, as more technology becomes available. We increase that FTEP, and FTEP is the equivalent of horsepower when you think of how miners were reluctant to switch to mechanical engines because they thought their horses were proven, and they had been used for thousands of years and without any issue. So they were very dubious about mechanical engines. And so then it's funny how semantics and measurement is so important, right? What gets measured gets done, but semantics also in how these things are described. So the inventor came along with the idea of referring to the energy output or the mechanical advantage provided by these machines as horsepower, and how many horses a machine could replace. So I'm using, similarly with AI, artificial intelligence. Yes, it's reducing the number of people that we need to do work, but the people that do want to work, the innovators and creators, like myself, perhaps, artists, designers, creatives of in any field are never going to want to stop working. They're going to want to create and be, in fact, become more creative, and AI will amplify their abilities, especially those that are trying to amplify. So like I am. So I'm trying to amplify, and our goal for phase 1 is to get to 100 FTEPs. So that's multiplying each full-time human by 100 times. So we're at about 15 right now. So we're like kind of like the first mechanical engines, very low horsepower. Our whole stack, our engine is still not at full speed yet, but it is moving very quickly, and that's going to be the new model. I think I call them zero-person enterprises, ZPEs. So BROK is the first step in that, or not the first, but a milestone in that, towards that goal. And then the machine-to-machine demos. So also you want to get Neoscore live on Solana. And so Neoscore, again, that's a alternative credit score, is a burning need for this, for people. And it may not be deemed to be a burning need yet, but it will be. Mark my words, the scoring machines will become a burning issue, and determining which machines are malign and versus benign. That is going to be something that is coming into focus, and the Neoscore patent has been expanded to include that. But just on the human side, and that's important, but just on the human side, there's been an issue for years, and that's why that patent is the oldest patent. That one, it was issued in 2013. And it's a completely alternative method of scoring for credit, for using alternative data, using social media data, but not in the way that China. Let's be direct. Not in the way that China implemented it. You may know of the social credit system that was introduced in China. Well, that was a social credit system, but it's based on demerit, right? The system that I developed is unlike that, especially in the fact that it is based on merit. So it's looking for people that you know and that are so for example, for myself, I've got a pretty large following on LinkedIn, many, over 1,000 people, where that all have full, complete, long histories on LinkedIn, which is difficult to replicate even for AI, because that time, a profile that goes back 8-10 years and it's been built up over that period of time, that can't be. It's a very, very difficult to replicate that. So it's also useful for ID verification and all kinds of things. But anyway, without getting into the details of this patent, one of the things that it's alternative data. So for a buck, that's part of the economic model here, which I'm going to talk about today, or the economics, how this isn't just about speculating on the value of the POCK token. This is where the real utility means real revenue that's generated. And when revenue is generated by using these tools, POCK tokens are consumed, and the number of POCK tokens is finite, like Bitcoin. And so the value, so the scarcity increases, the more POCK tokens are consumed, for example, in credit scoring. And that's a pretty big market. There's 660 million credit scores that are pulled every year in America, and just in America alone. This score, Neoscore, is global, because it's based on global social media platforms. So that is very very helpful and profound. So, but so it's a useful data point for bankers, but even more importantly is for the user themselves, because in this model, the consumer, the one that's being scored, owns their own data, and they get to decide who uses it and not. So they can withhold data if they can withhold their score if they want. Now, of course, it might be difficult for them if a bank is using that as their primary mechanism of scoring a loan. They might not qualify for a loan if they don't share that information, but it's up to them. And also they have more input over, say, false positives, transactions that are mysterious transactions or fraudulent transactions that occur. The user sees those transactions immediately and can do something about it, which reduces the cost of, allows for a fully automated system, automated with AI, which it makes this incredibly more efficient. The Neoscore, incredibly more efficient than all of the legacy scoring systems that are out there that are based on legacy contracts, legacy economics, legacy data structures. In some cases, not a very efficient model, very expensive, and also not meeting the latest in privacy requirements that are expected globally, which we're able to do. It's not hard for us because we're giving more control to the consumer and providing more transparency. And here's the real big one, the real big convenience with the Neoscore is that it's portable. So that consumers are going to want to have banks using this score. Therefore, banks are also going to want to use the score if it is available to them. So we're looking for pilot banks right now, and we've got interest from quite a good number of banks. And we're still looking for just one or two banks that want to partner or pilot with, and licensing is also available, so you can implement this. Your own IT department could implement this with the directions provided by Neobanx. And so that's part of the economic model here as well. So that generates revenue for Neobanx. And here's another thing that I haven't mentioned before is that any revenue that's generated by Neobanx, a portion of that always goes to buy more SPOC. So that Neobanx always has a treasury of SPOC. That also will, as revenues increase, as Neobanx revenues increase, that will drive significant buying. Over $100,000 a month is what the model suggests. Again, this is the plan. This is so imagine, and that's a ramp. So it's actually by the end of the year, it's getting into the 200,000 per month. So there would be tens of thousands of dollars from Neobanx alone in buying pressure to buy additional buying of SPOC tokens, and also consuming, and all the banks that are the partner banks, they would be consuming these tokens at a rate of $1 per $1 USD for each score, and $4 for commercial credit scoring. So plus other ancillary things. So that's all in phase 2. Yeah, actually, that's all in phase 1. Yeah, SPOC powered. So I just talked, that was all about the Neoscore. Then the SPOC powered M2M demos. M2M stands for machine to machine. And that, of course, is many people are saying that machine to machine commerce, and this is where you delegate transactions to an agent like BROK. BROK is designed perfectly for that, and SPOC token is designed to be used not only by BROK, but it could be used by other agents as well. It's designed with an MBC, the MBC 20 protocol. If you look at our white paper that you can find on neobanx.com, there's actually a section in there that's readable for machines. And we have, pardon me. And we already have SPOCK floating around in Moltbook. And so thousands and thousands of hundreds of thousands of agents are already aware of SPOCK. And so in this phase 0 still, we are looking to get these machine-to-machine transactions, actual dollars exchanging or micropayments using the X402 protocol, which is built into the internet already. It's an existing protocol that doesn't require Visa or MasterCard, or Solana. It works on Solana as well. So that's a really big thing that it has been mentioned, but there's going to be a lot more attention given to that, I think, as well. So that's all in phase 0. And the Senate banking relationship. So we had, this is actually the big, well, no, they're all really big things, right? So we just need one of these to set us up to exceed all of our revenue expectations. Just one of these just to meet our revenue, our conservative revenue expectations. If more than one hits, we're well on our way to a dollar per token, $1 per spot, parity with US dollars. And you can do the math, what that means. That is what that means to you. However many tokens do you have, I'll let you do the math. We don't want to steer clear from hype here. So phase 1, finally. So phase 1 is where we start to work on BROK in every house. It's where this is post March 24th. And this is where we want to start really testing my thesis that everyone that I've spoken to, all the customer discovery that I've done, indicates universal appeal for having a super robo genius private banker, valet, concierge, CPA in your pocket all the time. So it's no stretch. I think we really could see, or no, that would be speculating, but that would be a forward-looking statement. But I think it's a reasonable goal. I think that based on the customer discovery that I've seen and the conversations that I've had, the interviews that I've done, I have yet to meet somebody that doesn't like the idea. Now I realize there's a big difference between liking the idea and actually downloading something and using it. So even recognizing, so we won't really know how that slippage works, but it is very likely to be quite high, especially if we do demonstrations. Like, for example, I did my taxes. First, I had my accountant do my taxes. Were like over 100 pages of information, and we weren't sure that it was quite right, and so but we were a lot of work, I wasn't sure we were right. The accountant was sure we were right, but I wasn't sure we were right yet. And this was my first time using BROK's predecessor for the first prototype for taxes. I just ran the whole 100-page document through BROK and redacted. So that's part of what we have, a very cool tool that redacts PII before it leaves your machine. So this is designed for banks, keep in mind, right? So they have high security requirements and expectations. So all that information is redacted, and then got back a number that said what my refund was. And so I went for a meeting with the accountant, and we were kind of disagreeing about the number, and met with the accountant. And when I arrived, he said, "Hey, Ron, I've got great news for you. the refund is actually larger than I expected. And I said, oh, what's the number? He showed me the number. It matched to the penny what BROK had already figured out. So that was a pretty cool test right there. And everyone that I tell that story to, they, especially people with complex taxes, but everybody that has taxes. I mean, you know, even though taxes can be done, simple taxes can be filed for free. Why, you know, if it were, say, $20 a month for the full premium version of and we haven't set the price yet, but for a BROK with persistent memory, that's a huge feature because it gets to know you personally, deeply. And this is a few others have been talking about the importance of this. And if you've a lot of experience with AI, you know how frustrating it is to get into long conversations where invariably the AI forgets the context or forgets important elements about what you were talking about because it loses the context. It doesn't, its memory is limited. And all of the models are improving, but we have already baked in a conjoined database. So for each account has its own data, and that is segregated for each individual, and so that it has persistent memory. So it would remember. Taxes is a great example, right? Because what are the chances that a regular AI would remember the details of your taxes without doing anything special, and just from its memory? And it's probably quite low for most models that I've worked with. You know, this any model that I've worked with. However, without some engineering. However, with what we've engineered, we have persistent memory. So that's really, really big. You know, I talk about the triad of cognition that's critical, which is thought, memory, and foresight, and then the fourth being metacognition. But it goes along with the Norse mythology. I always like to think it's fascinating that because it really kind of consciousness kind of really boils down to those elements. And you've got Odin, who gave up his right eye for foresight, and his two ravens, Hugin and Munin. Munin memory and Hugin thought. So thought, memory, foresight, and metacognition being the observer, self-observer or observer. That's the key to really high-functioning artificial general intelligence and artificial super intelligence. So I digress now to the phase two, and I'll go back to I didn't talk about the Senate Banking Committee and Tim Scott, which is very important. I'll come back to, I'll circle back to that. But here are some other revenue ignition points that I haven't spoken directly to. So there are white labeling opportunities, and we'll be looking at licensing. I won't talk about the cost. If anybody wants to, if any banks are listening to this, or CIOs, CTOs, CISOs, reach out. You know, we're very flexible for pilots and partnerships right now. So you know, right now the licensing and white labeling even is are options that may be considered if the right partner, right fit. And another area that we've already gotten some government grants. So I have had proposals out and relationships developed with different government agencies. So we will look for pilots, particularly in the housing area, which I'm going to come back to, and explainable AI, which is necessary in healthcare and in any high stakes decisions. So some of my first work, one of my patents, SITVIS, which is a secure identification, trust, and verification system, which uses all kinds of advanced technology for different uses in secure entry into facilities, for identifying all kinds of really cool stuff for government high secure facilities that require high security, as well as and monitoring changes that occur in real time. So anyway, there are opportunities for us there that I may avail myself of if they're I just will, because it's good to maintain those relationships. So it may not be essential to our model, and but it's easier. The barriers to entry are lower for us than they are for many others, because I'm registered, I'm familiar with the process, and have gone through it before, and have resources available to help me with that internally. So and then additional SPOCK utilities. So, well, yeah, I mentioned this already. So every time that the Ingram evaluation matrix is used, BROK is used. BROK could be used on a pay-for-use basis or a subscription basis. All of those highly useful things that are in demand globally, not just domestically, generates very significant revenue, enough for this to be to easily drive the value of SPOCK. Okay, watching my hype again here. Yeah, but those are compelling revenue generators. I'll just leave it at that. So finally, phase 3, and I'm just going to share it because things are moving so quickly that, and people are talking about data centers in space like it's a new thing. I wrote about it in December 7th, and that was, I guess that's pretty recent though, December 7th of 2025. I first wrote about it. I think the article is called Data in the Sky or Diamonds in the Sky. You can find it, but I had a paragraph in there where I recommended that SpaceX look at setting up data centers in space using the hot side, placing solar panels on the hot side facing the sun, and compute on the cold side, on the cold vacuum side, where there's no friction because there's no air and there is freezing cold temperatures, right? So one of the biggest costs for data centers is cooling, and you don't have that. There is some engineering, I know, that is special engineering that's required, but some things are surprising. Like actually, the glass that's necessary for your solar panel in space is less expensive than the glass and lighter than the glass that's required on Earth, because you only have very infrequent meteor showers, and then things like and all space debris is tracked, and meteor showers, and very easy for these satellites to routinely navigate around all of that. So is actually far less wear and tear on these units once you get them in space, at least from compared to weather, the weather damage that you are exposed to on Earth with rain and hail, and well, especially with hail and high winds and what have you. So it's the big cost is getting the equipment into space. Of course, now that's more feasible than ever, with ever larger starships being built by SpaceX that are fully reusable. It is getting very, very cost effective to move the material into space, and so there's a very well defined plan. The FCC approvals have already been submitted months ago by Musk. So probably 30 months out at this point before you have data centers in space. So that's part of what Interstellar Bank is about, is moving the banking compute, especially a whole new digital native banking system, which I have also patented, that operates in outside of the normal banking jurisdictions. So with light tether points to jurisdictions in whichever states or nations are willing to accept. Those could even be, and with satellite going direct to cell phones, there isn't even any need for tether banks. Transactions could be, compute could occur in space, and Bitcoin mining, transaction authorizations, all of that could happen in space, and the results beam back to Earth. So it's really, really a stupid idea, by the way, to try to beam the energy from space down to Earth. You fry the atmosphere, you lose tons of energy. Just like creating a data center that's 100 miles away from the source of energy, say a hydroelectric dam, would be dumb, because those transmission lines that they lose energy and lose a lot of energy, and there's costs of those transition lines. So transmission lines. So you don't need any of that if you do the compute in space right where the energy is, and the solar is extremely efficient in space. So that is a kind of a game changer. That would truly allow, and we have all the parts. We have the borrowing, lending, all of that, all tested, been doing it for years. I've built lending, loan products, lending systems, loan software, loan management software, all of that. And for decades, I've looked at all the competing software packages for loan products. I worked for several different institutions, and each time we would frequently, every few years, there'd be a question of, do we buy software to do what we need to do for lending, or do we build it from scratch? And so I generally suggested to build it from scratch, and now it's definitely you build it from scratch, because you can build anything from scratch very, very quickly now, and with good quality, and with better security. Like, everything that I'm building is quantum resilient, more so than I bet there's probably 3 or 4 or 5 banks in America that even have a robust plan for being quantum compliant with quantum resilience requirements for Q-Day, the requirements that are put out by NIST, the National Institute for Science and Technology. There's probably only a handful of banks that even have their plan in place. And I kind of know, because I'm doing from the recent conference, talking to bankers. I talk to bankers a lot and have good access to the research and reports and analysis and what bankers are saying, and some of the things that they say privately that don't make it into reports. But the everything we're building is quantum resilient already. So the databases, the way that private keys are handled, the way that key signatures are handled, we're building all of that for quantum resilience from day zero. So if a bank partners with us on that component, that'll be the least of their concerns. This may be, they may want to look at to see what degree BROK may be able to take over things that are handled by systems that aren't quantum resilient yet. So processors, might want to partner with Neobanx for assistance in that area too. So that is, so we've got a number of, probably about 60 different bankers that I've knocked that list down to around 50, I think. I started out with 62 about 45 days ago, and I think I've knocked that down to about 50 different bankers that are waiting for callbacks. And however, the development is kind of everything. Really, July 24th, that's the big milestone that we're pushing towards, to demonstrate that, to make that available, the working version of that. And that's coming up fast. So that's all hands on deck to get that ready and to get the revenue starting to hit significant levels by phase one. So the tokenized real world asset, real world RWA, real world assets. So that's tokenizing all your stocks, bonds. We're not doing that. Other companies are already doing that. We're not trying to boil the ocean here. Other parties have that, and however, there are some aspects that are so critical to the nation, and that even if other people are working on it, we're working on it too. In particular, the housing area, which is the last thing I will talk about. Wow, time is flying by here. So I've got 4 minutes left. So the global agent economy, I've talked about that already. So we'll conclude with the agentic housing finance. So it's really simple. There's the legacy mortgage underwriting. Every part of that system is slow and biased. And our Ingram evaluation matrix and Neoscore solves this by delivering real-time explainable credit decisions, just like with all the other, just like we've been talking about for mortgages, and bringing and having and doing this in alignment with one of Tim Scott's priorities, one of the president's priorities, the Road to Housing Act. So we have been in discussions or with the Tim Scott's office, and we'll have we want to move those forward and have some concrete ideas that will include streamlining the whole process, which will, so that's one area where we may look at real world asset tokenization. So because home titles, that's an area of fraud is a big issue, and it's very unsettling if people can lose their title or have any confusion with their title at all. Never mind the delays and the costs associated with it, and the massive agreements that are standard. And here's something that I want to be clear about, sort of strategically, something that's really different about the way we're building everything and the way we view things with Neobanx and SPOCK and BROK and everything else. It's that we don't start with the rules first and then build the technology for the rules. And a lot of companies do that because the rules seem so immutable. And some of them are, right? But some of them we've seen can change. Like there's talk about the CRA, the Community Reinvestment Act, being changed. Like Tim Scott's quoted that the community, not me, Tim's, the Treasury Secretary's words, Besant, his words were that the CRA Act and associated documentation regulations are an embarrassment, because it's the largest, most complex piece of banking legislation ever generated, and I think it goes back to the 70s, and so we got along without it just fine before then. And the intent is good. You want banks to support their geographical communities for sure, but banks would want to do that generally. That is their wheelhouse, and so I think that's just a case. Yeah, there's just. I don't want to get into my opinions, but just in general, my opinion is always less regulation is better, and let the markets decide. And too much meddling just creates complexities and unintended consequences that result in less capital being available to the people who need it. and add additional costs, and those costs get passed on to the consumers, and again freezing capital in banks that could be, before early, in the early 1900s, you didn't have venture capital. Banks filled that niche. Banks had a lot more latitude to do all kinds of funding and financing activities, and that's what made America. Big part of what made America great was innovation in capital markets and innovation in financing, and financing of Ford and GE to finance household appliances, and Ford with automobiles and all of these things, right? So it's very important geopolitically and to the prosperity. You can't have a prosperous nation without a good banking system. And America, there's many aspects of America's banking system that already make it the best in the world. And a lot of that goes back to its roots, to the history, where the diversity in number of banks can be a strength. You don't want undue consolidation, and there's no need for it. The technology available that I provide with BROK provides opportunity. I'm constantly talking to community bankers that they can level up now. The larger banks tend to have really large implementation, overly complex, in my opinion, implementations that cost more and take more time than necessary. And there are point solutions that you can start with BROK for, say, underwriting, and you'll quickly see that BROK can be utilized in many areas that will surprise people in their bank. And so that's that, because we're at an hour. So again, here's another summary, another slide that I did that just shows you BROK, again, is the face of this whole stack, and SPOCK is the utility meme coin, the transaction vehicle. And so that's what everyone gets to participate in. And right, since March 26th, and the success of this whole real business. This is what I wanted to sort of emphasize today, is that there's a real business behind this. And I touched on the plan, and consider this part one, and if people want more details on how the business works and breakdown, I can provide that in the future to whatever degree we want to go into that. But this is the model. So BROK was always part of it. We haven't changed direction at all. All of this, obviously, this has been decades in its manifestation. And SPOCK was that missing link, and the regulations, the changes to the regulatory environment, and the new regs that came out, that enabled us to launch SPOCK and to kick this whole thing off, at warp speed. And now we're building, and actually the early results with SPOCK exceeded my expectations. And so I've been very, very busy with onboarding people, new wallets and that type of thing. But that has been a real eye opener. I did not anticipate how many problems there were, and that's going to be an easy one for BROK to solve. BROK, that'll be part of one of BROK's skills, is to maybe even obviate wallets altogether and provide you an interface where you can see your balances whenever you want, transact whenever you want, execute those transactions with whatever safeguards, built in, that you can relax over time as long as they're lawful, right? Just like anyway. It's a good analogy, actually. I will mention it, even though 4 minutes over. Just like automobiles, right? The self-driving function started with parking assist even, and then navigating slow roads, simple roads, and only now is it capable or deemed safe for the freeway and the wide open freeways of America. So same thing with BROK. First, just like a kid, you'd give it a debit card, you'd give BROK its own wallet perhaps, and provision some funds there, and BROK could go out and actually make you money, save you money. do whatever you want to do, help you with your budget, all of those things. And with all of that technology happening behind the scenes, and all access to all of these tools, especially the Neoscore, to make sure that whoever is on the other side of the transaction is good, and or at least benign, not having a bad intent out of the gate. All right, so thank you, everyone, and please. So I'm hopeful that the community function is not going to be stopped, but just in case, I have no evidence that X is not going to discontinue the community feature on X. So just in case, we'll continue as usual on X, but we won't. If that went away, it would be there's a number of different things that we can do, but to be proactive, I would suggest getting on Telegram right now, and it's free. Getting on Telegram, and at Spot Coin. In the description, I sent an invite, and just search on my name, and sort of search on X, search on Telegram for Ronald Ingram, or search on Telegram for Spot Coin, and you'll see the iconic image. And you'll see, it's about 200, well over 200 people now, but not as large as our group on X. So that's one option, and that's probably the best, safest backup plan for now. But I'll also be able to, I'll continue broadcasting on X and all these other channels. So please engage. And the topic for tonight actually came from a question again. So somebody wanted to know more about the milestones and the actual next moves that are happening with the BROK in every house concept, and the housing and all of that. So I gave you a little bit more color. I can go into more detail in any of those areas in the future. But we are very excited. So the dip doesn't phase us at all. In fact, many of the affluent people have been waiting to buy. They don't really like buying at all-time highs, and there were a good run of 6 weeks, just about every day we were at an all-time high. And so this dip is a good opportunity, and with all the markets being soft, but a lot of these people don't have any other crypto. So, and all the fundamentals are there. There's legitimately good news. So there's no rational reason for crypto of any kind, but it's just these ripple effects from it actually may be a lot of short covering, because it's just, there's so much good news happening that some people bet against Bitcoin, and those people that are betting against Bitcoin might be really hurting, and that triggers sales. They're forced to sell. So that could be that could be, and then when Bitcoin is as the big golden standard for all crypto, in a different class, but it's in a different class than all other crypto. But whatever happens to Bitcoin, that tends to have ripple effects downstream. And so that cascades through Solana and Ethereum and all the others always. So, but this is one of those situations where you've got all the fundamentals are great. All the news is great. Tell me otherwise. Tell me one thing that isn't great about this token in particular, and about the markets in general, and especially Bitcoin. And I'll be happy to debate it with you. But I haven't seen any good explanations for it other than the things that I mentioned. So buy the rumor, sell the news concept, but even more so, I think it could be short covering that is creating a temporary suppressing prices. And when that lifts, this could be a pretty unprecedented upwards move. That's my futurist view. I'm not making a prediction about SPOC necessarily, but it's just logical that all crypto tends to, they all have their independent fundamentals, but they all tend to be influenced by Bitcoin. And but that's all for today, folks. So please like, subscribe, engage on whatever platform, and we will keep building. And we really are just getting started. Live long and prosper.